The surrender climaxed perhaps the most intensive search in years in the North Texas area. Even off-duty and vacationing officers had worked in the search for Nelson. The action took place at mid-morning and very swiftly. Nelson was taken immediately before District Judge Byron Matthews and was being arraigned before city police were fully alerted to the fact that he was in custody. He is now in the county jail. No bond was allowed due to a probation violation from an earlier conviction Nelson had. Sheriff Lon Evans talked with Channel 8's Jim Green about the day's events. There's probably no significance to it, but Sheriff Evans' story differs from the one told by Nelson's brother Marvin. The brother says he and David were driving in a car when they met the sheriff. Evans says he and his men met Nelson at a house. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News on the Move, in Como, in Fort Worth.
Well, I don't plan to make any changes in the football picture as far as what we've started here at TCU. I plan to go on just with the program and develop the program just as we had all started when we came in here. And of course, I'll be my own self. I'll coach exactly the way I coach, and I don't plan to pattern myself after any particular person. I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think it's a good way for a man to lose his job real quick. I personally will coach on the field and continue being myself. Of course, myself, I've been with Pitt so long, been so close to him, myself will be practically like he is. And I don't look for any changes or anything like that. We plan to continue on just as we always have. Of course, I will have to hire me another football coach as soon as possible so we can take up the slack in recruiting.
Well, Jerry, of course, the game was very gratifying from the standpoint of improvement. Our offense and defense and our kicking game showed great improvement, and we were very well satisfied with the overall hustle and enthusiasm shown by our players. Of course, the score didn't come out the way we wanted it to, but I think the game in itself will serve a purpose to give our team confidence that they can play on even terms with anyone.
Well, in interviewing you last Friday, I noticed the enthusiasm in which they were obviously going to take to Texas. Do they still have that enthusiasm and against A&M, do you feel?
Jerry, I'm very hopeful that we'll have it by game time. As you know, this has been a sad week around here, and the coaches, the players, the fans, everyone keep talking about the Texas game and what should have been, but we have to forget about it, and I think we have enough character on our ball club to snap back for the A&M game. The thing that worries me more than the mental attitude is we have 9 youngsters injured, and it looks like about 3 of them may not play, and the fact that the others are missing practice this week concerns me greatly, and because we'll have to have an all-out effort against the Aggie team that have found themselves, and they've got a lot of momentum going after defeating Arkansas.
What will be your toughest assignment in A&M in the game?
Well, I think number one is not to make mistakes, is not to beat ourselves, because they're not that explosive, and they play good, sound, hard-nosed football, and that's what we're going to have to do, and it's basically going to get down to the team that makes the fewest mistakes will probably win the ball game.
For about 2 months, billboards have been scattered all over the state saying, "Gordon McLendon, he's the man." Now they're going to be changed to a new slogan saying, "Gordon McLendon, why are all the professional politicians worried?" There's been no announcement as to what these billboards mean, but it's generally assumed they mean that Gordon McLendon is going to run for public office, probably for governor. Some of his friends say that he wants to run against Ralph Yarborough, and he couldn't put the office that he's running for on the billboards until Ralph Yarborough decides if he's going to run for the Senate or for governor. This is the Gordon McLendon you've heard of in regard to movie houses, radio stations. In fact, the radio station that he's selling for $11 million. And it's the Gordon McLendon that ran against Ralph Yarborough for Senate unsuccessfully in 1964. But the real story here is the reliable information that we have received that Gordon McLendon actually intends to run an entire slate of candidates. That is, a candidate for each statewide office and a candidate for each of the legislative seats from Dallas County. The purpose of this plan would be to provide for the voters an alternative, saying maybe we should just get rid of everyone in Austin because any one of them might be tainted by the stock fraud case and put in a whole new slate of clean candidates. There's even some indication that McLendon would like to set up a separate party for his candidates to run in. If he's going to do that, we should know it in a few days because this week is the deadline for filing with the Secretary of State a resolution declaring formation of a new party. If he doesn't set up a separate party, presumably his candidates would run as Democrats, which is a rumor that County Democrat Chairman Earl Luna has heard. Or they could wait and file in June as independents and run only on the November general election ballot. Unable to talk to Mr. McLendon today, so we don't know just what his plans really are. But we do know that he has talked about these plans with some friends, and they're certainly not out of character with Gordon McLendon. This is Ross McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move. What it says up there.
Sheriff, under what conditions did Nelson surrender to you?
Well, we've been in touch with people who are trying to help us for the last 3 or 4 days, and by negotiations, we were able to get Mr. Nelson in custody this morning.
Where did you pick him up?
In the Como area, which is the western part of our county, our city, pardon me.
Did he call you to offer any resistance?
No, I didn't talk to him, or he offered no resistance whatsoever. And we brought him straight to the jail, and I imagine that the city will won't talk to him.
What specific promises did you make him?
Well, the only promises I made him was that, of course, he wouldn't be harmed in any manner, and that's inmates or anyone else.
Did he deny the charges at the arraignment?
Yes, he denied that he was guilty. Not at the arraignment. He denied it to me. I didn't hear him at the arraignment. He wasn't asked that.
There's some statement made that he was afraid. What is he afraid of?
Well, of course, if you're being hunted, anyone would be afraid. So this is the thing. And he knew his picture and the news and the TV and everything put out that he's being hunted. And if you're being hunted by men who carry guns, you'd be afraid, wouldn't you?
The worst thing that can happen is that as these new lava tubes are built, they will flow into either vacant areas or areas that the lava can make itself, and materially, within a very short period of time, move so many billions of pounds of earth in the form of this lava that it will unbalance the earth and cause eventually a too drastic change in the center of gravity of the earth.
Are you suggesting that the earth may explode then?
No. I'm suggesting that it will finally get to the point where it will pulsate like a frog a-puffin almost.
Well, this is not true. As a matter of fact, if anyone wants to investigate the Ramsay report and compare it to the Smith interim ordinance, they will see that the Smith interim ordinance on a table or a scale attached to that ordinance even shows where he got his input that he keeps talking about. It even mentions input from the sign industry. So a good deal of his report came from the sign industry and not from the Ramsay report.
What do you feel could be done if the council decides to adopt the Smith ordinance? Will you fight that?
If the council took final action and adopted the Smith report, there would be nothing that we could do to fight it. If I could, I would. but then we would have 6 months, I presume, to work on a permanent ordinance. But I don't think the staff could work on a permanent ordinance with very much heart when they know we are existing under such a weak interim ordinance, which the Smith ordinance is, because it will only proliferate signs.
It has taken 5 years to get from an idea to this point. But the people involved still feel that this is just the beginning of an effort to serve the total community. The Crossroads Community Center is not designed to be a cure-all for South Dallas. Controversy, which has surrounded Crossroads almost from the beginning, stems mainly from a misunderstanding of its purposes. But despite all controversy, people are being served. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna at the Crossroads Community Center.
Well, the Dallas Bar Association's Board of Directors has directed me to make a statement, prepare a statement, or the Executive Committee to prepare a statement in which we criticize the Board of Directors of Dallas Legal Services for summarily firing Jim Hammonds and for having a non-lawyer, although a fine lady. I have no criticism of Miss Hamlet as a very fine lady, but she is not a lawyer, and we feel that a lawyer should be both director and interim director of Dallas Legal Services.
Why was it not written into the bylaws, if you will, of DLSP that a lawyer be director?
I think that everyone always just thought that a lawyer always would be the director of Dallas Legal Services, and I've been advised by the regional office here in Dallas that that's one of the rules of the OEO.
Then what's going to happen to Mrs. Hamlet?
Well, hopefully there will be a permanent director selected in a very short period of time.
Jim Hammond came out of El Paso. He expected to be the director of Legal Services Project. He caught flack from the word go. He caught it for 3 months, and he ultimately was fired. He now says, I'm through with trying to work with poverty organizations. Is that a tragedy?
I think so. I think that Jim was a dedicated man, that he wanted to do good on this job. Whether or not he could have done good, nobody will ever know because he never got a chance.
I think we can reach a consensus with what I call the constructive critics. There's always a group that we will not reach a consensus with or not reach an agreement with. One of our difficulties today is that we find that, or suspect, it's difficult to identify, that some groups are joining the environmental movement not because of concern for the environment, but because they have other problems that are bothering them. And the easiest way to express their objection is through the popular environmental movement. And many of the concerned environmentalists will agree with us on this and deplore the situation. So we have to watch out for this sort of thing, and that's the type of person that you can't satisfy no matter how carefully you make your studies of the environment and the potential impacts. And I don't think there's any way to do that. This is something we just have to accept.
There's now a real chaotic situation in the industry where a man has a 3-year license and that's all, and conceivably he could lose that license after 3 years. If this happens on a large scale, the industry will be in deep trouble because nobody will go into it, nobody will spend any money on equipment, nobody will spend any money on programming, nobody will sign any labor contracts. It strictly adds up to chaos, and legislation is vitally needed.
Why is it that suddenly broadcasters are faced with only a 3-year life? There are many broadcasting organizations that have lasted much longer.
Well, no, there has been that requirement of 3 years, but it's been understood if you've done a fairly good job in serving the community and finding out what the community needs, you had reason to believe that you would have a license until you goofed. But here recently, this has been thrown out because a policy statement was offered by the Federal Communications Commission, and the United States District Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia threw it out. And now there is no guideline, and as a result, you're getting a lot of fringe groups who are filing on top of broadcasters, and for many and various reasons. And I'm not very happy to say that a lot of them are subsidized by tax-free foundations.
if everyone would take that Smith ordinance and break it down article by article, they would see that we would be 3 times or 10 times more cluttered than we are right now.
The Plan Commission recommended the adoption of the staff written ordinance by a split vote. Is there anything now that the Commission can do, or do you just have to sit back?
No, the Commission is a recommending body to the Council, and we were hoping that the Council would take our recommendation since we are appointees of that Council. But there are so many pressure groups involved in this fight that unfortunately it has become like a political football, which it should never be, because if you're going to have a great city with a great future, you can't take major issues like this and make them political animals and succeed to be the all-American city that we say we are.
I think we're telling ourselves again what I suspect we knew in the beginning sort of intuitively, that you can't make a plan for the environment without talking to the people who are vitally concerned with the environment. The inventory, if we can define what should be inventoried, I won't say doesn't have some difficulties, but it should be relatively easy. There are lots of organizations in the state, such as Texas, who can identify the flora and the fauna, and we can pretty well describe the existing situations. You have historical societies that can identify the areas of historical significance, and there are many such groups who are willing to participate, many on a contributed basis. And I think we draw these in and collect the information as to the current status. The difficult problem is to be sure that you've gotten everything that is significant, and then to try to translate into what we call predictive ecology. This is a relatively new science.
The development of the busing situation here in Dallas has nothing to do with my prayer for and hoping for and working for a religious school. It just happens to be that we're interested in busing now, so anytime that a private school is mentioned, immediately people begin to think in terms of these court orders for busing. I'm hoping that somehow the courts will change their mind, or the Congress will change their mind for them.